Ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world where kindness is often misunderstood. It's been misconstrued as people-pleasing or bending over backward to accommodate others, even when it costs us our integrity, our dignity, or our sense of self-worth. Today, I want to talk about something bold, something essential, why we must stop being nice to men and what that truly means. Let's take a moment to explore what it really means to be nice for many of us. Being nice is something we were conditioned to do from a young age. We were told, be nice to your classmates, be nice to your siblings, or be nice to people so they like you. And while the intention behind these lessons may have been good, the result was often a misunderstanding of what niceness really entails. Being nice in this context usually means going along to get along. It means suppressing our true feelings, avoiding conflict, and saying yes when we really mean no. It often means we choose to put someone else's feelings above our own needs, not because it's the right thing to do, but because we're afraid of how they might react if we don't. But here's the truth: nice is often fear in disguise. It's the fear of being disliked, the fear of rocking the boat, the fear of being labeled as difficult, rude, or ungrateful. Nice isn't necessarily genuine. It's a performance, a facade that hides our true selves in an effort to gain acceptance or avoid rejection. On the other hand, kindness is something entirely different. Kindness comes from a place of inner strength, not fear. Kindness says, I respect you, but I also respect myself. It allows us to show compassion for others without compromising our own values, needs, or boundaries. Think of it this way: being nice often feels heavy. It leaves us feeling drained, resentful, or taken advantage of because it requires us to give up pieces of ourselves for the sake of others. But kindness feels light. It's rooted in honesty and integrity. It allows us to give to others from a place of abundance, not obligation. Here's an example. Imagine you're at work and a colleague asks you to take on an extra project. If you're focused on being nice, you might immediately say yes, even if you're already overwhelmed. You don't want to disappoint them or be seen as unhelpful. But deep down, you're angry with yourself for agreeing, and that anger starts to fester. Now, imagine approaching the situation with kindness instead. Kindness would allow you to say, I appreciate you thinking of me, but I can't take on this project right now. I want to make sure I give my best to the work I already have on my plate. See the difference? Kindness is honest, it's clear, and it respects both your needs and the other person's. When we prioritize being nice over being kind, we sacrifice authenticity for approval. We start to lose sight of who we are because we're so focused on being who we think others want us to be. But here's the secret: real relationships, the ones that are meaningful and fulfilling, don't require you to be nice. They require you to be real. And yes, being kind can be uncomfortable. It might mean setting boundaries or having difficult conversations. It might mean disappointing someone in the short term. But in the long run, kindness builds trust, respect, and connection. It frees you from the burden of pretending to be someone you're not. So the next time you're tempted to be nice, pause and ask yourself, am I doing this out of fear, or am I doing it out of love? Am I being true to myself, or am I just trying to keep the peace? Because when you choose kindness over niceness, you're not just doing what's right for others, you're doing what's right for you. Let's stop being nice and start being kind. Let's stop acting out of fear and start living with courage. Because the world doesn't need more people who are nice. It needs more people who are real, honest, and unapologetically kind. Would you like to expand any other keynotes in a similar way? Let's take a moment to talk about a word that often makes people uncomfortable: boundaries. For many of us, boundaries are misunderstood. We think of them as walls that separate us from others, as a way to push people away or keep them at a distance. But boundaries are not walls, they're bridges. Boundaries are an act of love. They are an expression of self-respect and an invitation for healthier relationships. When we set boundaries, we're not saying, I don't care about you, we're saying, I care about you and I care about me too. Here's where it gets tricky. Many of us, especially women, have been conditioned to believe that saying no or setting limits makes us selfish, unkind, or difficult. We've been taught that our value comes from how much we can give, how much we can give, how much we can sacrifice, and how much we can endure. But here's the truth: when we constantly give without limits, we're not being loving, we're being self-abandoning. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine you have a garden. That garden is your life, your energy, your time, and your emotional well-being. If you don't set boundaries around your garden, if you let everyone trample through it, pick the flowers and take what they want, it won't take long before your garden is bare. There will be nothing left for you to enjoy and nothing left to give. But when you set boundaries, you're putting a fence around your garden. You're saying, this is what I can offer, and this is what I need to protect for myself. You're giving others a clear pathway to engage with you in a way that's respectful and mutually beneficial. And you're ensuring that your garden stays vibrant, not just for you, but for everyone who enters. Boundaries are not a form of rejection, they're a form of respect. They teach others how to treat you, and they teach you how to treat yourself. When you set boundaries, you're showing people what you value, what you need, and what you will and will not accept. Now, I know this is easier said than done. Setting boundaries can feel scary, especially if you spent most of your life prioritizing other people's comfort over your own truth. You might worry about upsetting someone, losing a relationship, or being labeled as difficult. But here's the thing: the people who truly care about you will respect your boundaries. And the people who don't respect them, they're showing you that they were only invested in what they could take from you, not in what they could give. When you set boundaries, you might face resistance. Some people won't understand why you're changing the rules of engagement. They might push back, get upset, or try to guilt you into backing down. But this is where your strength comes in. Boundaries are not just about setting limits, they're about holding them, even when it's uncomfortable. Here's a practical example. Let's say you have a friend who constantly calls you at all hours to vent about their problems. You love your friend, but these calls leave you drained. Setting a boundary might sound like this: I care about you and I want to support you, but I can't take calls late at night. Let's find another time to talk when I can be fully present. Notice the tone. It's not harsh, it's not mean, and it's not dismissive. It's clear, compassionate, and firm. That's the essence of a loving boundary. But boundaries aren't just for others, they're for you too. They're a way to check in with yourself and ask, what do I need to feel safe, valued, and whole? They help you honor your own limits, protect your energy, and create space for the things that truly matter. Boundaries are not about control, they're about clarity. They're not about shutting people out, they're about inviting them in on healthier terms. When you set boundaries, you're not just loving yourself, you're loving others enough to be honest with them. So let's reframe how we see boundaries. Let's stop thinking of them as barriers and start seeing them as bridges. Let's stop associating them with guilt and start connecting them to love. Because when you set boundaries, you're not being selfish, you're being brave. Boundaries are the greatest gift you can give yourself and the people in your life. They create space for trust, respect, and genuine connection. And they remind you and everyone else that you are worthy of love that honors you, not love that depletes you. So don't be afraid to set boundaries. Do it with kindness, do it with courage, and do it with love. Because when you protect your energy, you protect your ability to give the best of yourself to the world. Would you like me to expand another keynote or make adjustments to this one? Let's talk about something many of us wrestle with: the need for approval. It's natural, isn't it? We all want to be liked, to be accepted, to feel like we belong. But here's the challenge: when the need for approval takes center stage in our lives, it can push authenticity, the core of who we truly are, into the shadows. Think about it. How often have you bitten your tongue to avoid conflict? How often have you agreed with someone, even when their words went against your values, simply to keep the peace? How often have you acted a certain way or said certain things just to ensure that others would like you or at least not reject you? Now, I'm not saying approval is inherently bad. It feels good to be acknowledged, to have others validate our worth. But the problem arises when approval becomes the metric by which we measure ourselves. When we prioritize being liked over being real, we start to live a life that isn't ours. It's a performance designed to meet the expectations of others. Here's the truth: approval is fleeting, but authenticity is enduring. The approval you gain by pretending to be someone you're not can disappear the moment you stop performing. But the connections you build by being your authentic self, those are the ones that last. Authenticity is about courage. It's about standing in the truth of who you are, even when it feels vulnerable, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it means risking disapproval. Authenticity says, this is me, take it or leave it. And while that might sound harsh, it's actually an invitation for others to connect with the real you, not the version of you that's curated for their comfort. Choosing authenticity over approval isn't easy. It requires us to confront the fear of rejection, the fear of not being enough, and the fear of standing out when we've been taught to blend in. But here's the irony: when we let go of the need for approval, we often find a deeper sense of belonging. Why? Because authenticity attracts authenticity. When you show up as your true self, you give others permission to do the same. Let me share an example. Imagine you're in a group of people and the conversation turns to a topic you're passionate about, but your perspective differs from the majority. If you prioritize approval, you might stay silent or nod along, even though your heart is screaming to speak up. But if you choose authenticity, you'll share your truth not to argue or prove a point, but simply to honor your voice. And here's what happens: even if some people disagree with you, they'll respect you for your honesty. And the people who truly resonate with your authenticity, they'll gravitate towards you. You'll create a connection that's deeper than surface level approval. It's built on mutual respect and understanding. But let's be clear, authenticity doesn't mean you have to share every thought, feeling, or opinion with the world. It doesn't mean being reckless or disregarding the impact of your words and actions. Authenticity is about alignment. It's about ensuring that your inner values and outer actions are in harmony. When you choose authenticity over approval, you're also choosing self-respect over self-sacrifice. You're saying, I trust that who I am is enough. I trust that my worth isn't determined by how many people approve of me, but by how true I am to myself. This shift from approval seeking to authenticity is transformational. It liberates you from the exhausting cycle of trying to please everyone. It frees you to pursue the things that truly matter to you instead of the things you think will earn you praise. And it allows you to build relationships that are rooted in truth, not pretense. Now, let's address the fear that often accompanies authenticity, the fear of being judged. Yes, when you show up as your true self, some people might judge you, but here's a liberating thought: their judgment says more about them than it does about you. You cannot control how others perceive you, but you can control how you show up in the world. And remember this: the people who are meant for you, the ones who will uplift you and support you, will never require you to compromise your authenticity for their approval. They'll love you for who you are, not for who you pretend to be. So let's commit to this: stop diluting yourself to fit into spaces that weren't designed for the fullness of who you are. Stop apologizing for your passions, your quirks, and your dreams. Stop seeking approval from people who will never see your worth. Instead, stand tall in your truth. Speak with your voice. Walk in your purpose. Authenticity is your superpower. It's what makes you unique, what sets you apart, and what draws the right people and opportunities into your life. Don't trade it for fleeting approval, because at the end of the day, the greatest approval you can earn is your own. Choose authenticity, choose courage, choose you. Would you like me to expand another keynote or refine this one further? There's an unspoken rule that many of us, especially women, have been taught to follow: prioritize others' comfort. Even at the expense of your own truth. We've been conditioned to smooth things over, to avoid rocking the boat, to shrink ourselves so others feel at ease. But let me ask you this: how often have you sacrificed your own voice, needs, or identity in order to keep the peace? And at what cost? When you prioritize someone else's comfort over your truth, you're sending a message not just to them, but to yourself. You're saying your feelings matter more than mine. Your perspective holds more weight than my reality. Your ease is worth more than my authenticity. And over time, this silent self-betrayal erodes your confidence, your boundaries, and your sense of self-worth. It starts small. Maybe you laugh at a joke that you find offensive just to avoid an awkward moment. Maybe you say yes to something you don't want to do just to avoid disappointing someone. Maybe you stay silent in a conversation when your heart is urging you to speak up. These moments might seem insignificant, but each one chips away at your integrity. Here's the hard truth: prioritizing others' comfort over your truth is not kindness, it's compliance. It's an agreement to betray yourself in exchange for someone else's approval, ease, or affection. But let me tell you this: the price of that betrayal is far too high. Living in your truth means being honest about who you are, what you need, and what you believe. It means speaking up when something feels wrong, even if it makes others uncomfortable. It means honoring your own boundaries, even if it means someone might feel disappointed. But let's acknowledge why this is hard. When you spent years prioritizing others' comfort, shifting to living in your truth can feel like rebellion. You might fear being seen as difficult, selfish, or confrontational. You might worry about losing relationships or facing criticism. And that fear, it's real. The truth is, some people won't like it when you start honoring your truth. They might push back, question your decisions, or accuse you of changing. But their discomfort isn't your responsibility to manage. Your truth isn't a burden, it's your birthright. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're at work and your boss assigns you a task that feels beyond your capacity. You're tempted to say yes because you don't want to seem uncooperative. But deep down, you know that taking on this task will overwhelm you and compromise the quality of your work. If you prioritize their comfort, you might say yes, silently resenting the situation in yourself. But if you choose your truth, you might say, I appreciate the trust you're placing in me, but I have too much on my plate to give this the attention it deserves. Can we discuss a better solution? Do you see the difference? Speaking your truth doesn't have to be harsh or confrontational. It can be clear, respectful, and firm. But it does require courage. Here's another example, one that hits closer to home for many of us: relationships. How many times have you avoided sharing your true feelings with someone because you didn't want to upset them? Maybe you pretended to be okay with something that hurt you. Maybe you tolerated behavior that crossed your boundaries because you didn't want to seem too sensitive, but in doing so, you prioritized their comfort over your truth, and in the process, you silenced your own voice. It's time to flip the script. Instead of asking, how can I make them comfortable, start asking, what is true for me right now? Instead of saying, what will they think? Start saying, what do I need? When you prioritize your truth, you set a powerful precedent. You show others that your feelings, needs, and boundaries matter. You teach them how to respect you not by demanding it, but by modeling it. And you free yourself from the exhausting task of constantly managing other people's emotions at the expense of your own. But let's be clear: living in your truth doesn't mean being insensitive or disregarding others. It's not about bulldozing through conversations or forcing your opinions onto people. It's about balance. It's about honoring your truth while remaining open to understanding others. It's about standing firm in who you are without diminishing the humanity of those around you. Here's what happens when you stop prioritizing others' comfort over your truth. You reclaim your voice. You learn to speak up for yourself, even when it feels scary. You strengthen your boundaries. You start saying no without guilt and yes without hesitation. You attract healthier relationships. People who respect your truth will stay, and those who don't will naturally fade away. You deepen your self-respect. You start valuing yourself as much as you value others. This shift might feel uncomfortable at first, but discomfort is where growth happens. You'll find that the more you honor your truth, the easier it becomes. And as you do, you'll notice a profound change, not just in how others treat you, but in how you treat yourself. So I challenge you, stop prioritizing others' comfort over your truth. Start showing up as the fullest, most authentic version of yourself. The world doesn't need more people pleasers, it needs people who are brave enough to live in their truth. And remember this, your truth is not negotiable. It's not a suggestion or an option, it's a necessity. It's the foundation of a life that is honest, fulfilling, and free. And you are worthy of living that life no matter who it makes uncomfortable. Would you like me to expand the final keynote or adjust this one further? There comes a moment in every person's life when they must decide, will I continue to live for others, or will I be brave enough to choose myself? This decision isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet, a small but profound shift in the way you show up for yourself. But make no mistake, choosing yourself is one of the bravest and most revolutionary acts you can commit to in this lifetime. For many of us, choosing ourselves feels selfish. It feels unnatural, even wrong, because we've been conditioned to believe that putting ourselves first makes us unkind, ungrateful, or unworthy of love. We've been taught to equate self-sacrifice with virtue and to wear our self-neglect as a badge of honor. But here's the truth, choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's essential. It's the foundation for a life of authenticity, purpose, and fulfillment. Let me be clear, choosing yourself doesn't mean disregarding others or ignoring your responsibilities. It doesn't mean abandoning the people you care about or refusing to compromise in relationships. Choosing yourself means recognizing that your needs, desires, and dreams matter just as much as anyone else's. It means refusing to betray yourself in order to fit into someone else's narrative. But let's acknowledge why this is hard. Choosing yourself often feels like swimming upstream. It can mean going against the expectations of others, family, friends, coworkers, even society at large. It can mean saying no when everyone else expects a yes. It can mean walking away from relationships or situations that no longer serve you, even if it feels painful in the moment. Let's talk about what this looks like in real life. Imagine you've been in a relationship where your needs are consistently ignored. You've been bending over backward to accommodate the other person, but you're left feeling depleted and unseen. Choosing yourself might mean having a hard conversation, setting boundaries, or even ending the relationship altogether. It's not an easy choice, but it's a necessary one if you want to reclaim your sense of self. Or perhaps you've been stuck in a job that drains your energy and stifles your potential. You've stayed because it feels secure, because others tell you it's the smart thing to do. But deep down, you know you're meant for something more. Choosing yourself might mean taking a risk, starting that business, pursuing that dream, or stepping into a new opportunity. Choosing yourself also shows up in the small, everyday decisions. Saying no to plans when you need rest, even if you're worried about disappointing someone. Speaking up when something doesn't align with your values, even if your voice shakes. Prioritizing your mental and physical health, even when life feels overwhelming. Now, let's address the fear that often comes with choosing yourself. What if I lose people? What if they think I'm selfish or ungrateful? This fear is real, and it's valid. Choosing yourself doesn't come without consequences. Some people might not understand your choices. Some relationships might shift, and some might end. But here's what I want you to know: the people who truly love and respect you will support your decision to choose yourself. They'll see it not as an act of rejection, but as an act of courage. And the people who don't, they were never meant to hold space for the fullest version of you. Choosing yourself requires bravery because it demands that you face the discomfort of change. But it's in that discomfort that you'll find growth. You'll discover strength you didn't know you had, and you'll open doors to opportunities and relationships that align with your true self. When you choose yourself, you send a powerful message to the world: I am worthy. I am enough. I deserve to live a life that honors who I truly am. This isn't arrogance, it's self-respect. It's a quiet but firm declaration that you will no longer shrink, settle, or sacrifice yourself to make others comfortable. So how do you begin? Start by listening to yourself. Pay attention to your inner voice, the one that tells you what you need, what you value, and what you dream of. Too often we silence this voice to prioritize others, but it's time to let it speak. Set boundaries that protect your energy. Choosing yourself means learning to say no to what drains you so you can say yes to what nourishes you. Boundaries aren't barriers, they're bridges to a healthier, more balanced life. Embrace imperfection. Choosing yourself doesn't mean you'll always get it right. You'll make mistakes, second guess yourself, and face setbacks. But every time you choose yourself, you're practicing courage and self-compassion.